Hi, welcome to You, Me and Mediumship. I'd like to kind of build a scenario of how I teach, um, things that have come up whilst I teach, to give you an idea. If you've got kind of a few questions about learning mediumship or working as a medium, then hopefully this video will help guide you in the right direction. I get asked an awful lot of questions, normally based on, I guess, past courses that some of the students have taken. Maybe they question some of the things that I suggest, and maybe those things have not been suggested in previous courses, or they've gone against what I've suggested. Obviously, all teachers, I guess, will work slightly differently. But I want to give you a scenario of some of the things that have come up. Let's create a student, I guess. We'll call her, I don't know, Sarah. I don't think I've got any students called Sarah, so we use the word, or the name, sorry, Sarah. Now, Sarah's a bit confused as to how to develop her mediumship. She's got an understanding of it. She has a knowing of it. She's had experiences maybe throughout her life and just wants to progress, wants to be able to form a line of communication, if you like, with the energy that she feels that is around her. She may well have experienced this energy. She may well have seen the energy. She may well have heard the energy. So she wants to be able to improve on that line of communication that she knows kind of already exists. So how does she go about this? Now, I do get asked an awful lot of questions, especially early on from the students, because they've been on other courses. They may be sitting in development circles, and I always pick up on quite a bit of frustration from the students, especially early on, because they've probably been told one thing by one teacher, and then they're being told another thing completely the opposite from a new teacher, and it all becomes one big muddled up mess. And like I said, it causes an awful lot of frustration. It doesn't help them with their progression, with moving forward with their mediumship. So yeah, I've been there myself, obviously many moons ago, and it's not a nice place to be, is it? When you're dedicating time and effort into building that relationship with spirit, and you seem to take 2 steps forward and then 6 steps back, and nothing seems to improve. And the first thing you'll do is blame yourself and turn around and say you're not understanding it, you're not doing it right. What am I doing wrong? Maybe I don't deserve this. Maybe I don't deserve to be a medium. Maybe I'm not good enough. And I hear this all the time. Well, let me tell you this. You certainly are more than worthy of building on that ability of communication with spirit. The very fact that spark is within you means that you need to work with it. Okay? If you have an open heart, you're willing to dedicate time to build on that communication with spirit, then you're at a good starting point already. You've already got your first foot on the ladder, if you like, and ready to climb. So let's pretend we've got a student then. Her name's Sarah, and she signs up, bless her heart, with me, and we meet monthly. What happens on that first meeting? Normally, the student does most of the talking, probably for the first 1 or 2 meetings, to be quite honest, because it's important that I understand who they are. I don't know, I don't need to know the ins and outs of their lives or anything like that, but I believe that there has to be that link between student and, I say teacher, I'd rather kind of not use that word. I will use it just so that you understand, but I'm here more to hold your hand and just lead and guide you on that journey. Yes, I will obviously suggest different things to do, different directions to take, but I'm there more of a guide rather than a teacher. I just don't like the ring of that. But anyway, so I will listen. I will get a feel, a sense of where you're at. That takes a bit of time. But once I understand the point you are at, I can then start to move you forward. What does take time is what I call, well, the students named it for me really, I didn't come up with this idea, but they call it defluffing. So obviously over the years, a lot of students have been on many courses, they've read many books, and their heads are just full of fluff. And a lot of this fluff is absolutely unbelievable nonsense. I'm sure sometimes, and please don't get me wrong, this is not being said to knock anyone in particular at all. Okay, there are some unbelievably good teachers out there of mediumship. There are. But there are also an awful amount of, I'm not sure where they've got their information from, again, probably from books and their courses that they've been on. But some of the statements that are made to me, some of the things that have been said to some of the students is absolutely unbelievable. Well, more than anything, it saddens me to think that out there are people being taught this and are believing it. A good thing, and I'm so happy that I do hear this, is that many of the students will turn around and say, it didn't feel right. I know, I didn't feel like I could accept that. The truth is, do not accept it. Do not absorb it. If it is not sitting right with you, then it's not right. It's as simple as that. And why do we know it's not right? Like I would explain to Susan, you need to have time to find out who Susan is. I'm not talking about Susan that goes to work, the Susan that cooks the dinner, or the Susan who likes hockey or tennis, or I'm not talking about that. That's Susan in the material. That's Susan out there in the plastic world doing what Susan does, so she fits in and jumps on the hamster wheel, etc. So I'm talking about the real Susan. I'm talking about Susan that has always been. When I say that, I don't mean from birth. I mean from before then. I'm talking about the Susan that has always been. That energy has always been, has always existed, has always been part of all that is. And Susan needs to get to know her. She will spend time sitting with her. She will spend time in that space of hers purely with the true Susan. Not the Susan we see walking down the street every day. Not that Susan. The Susan who has always been, has always existed. Now, if that sounds a bit complicated, to be honest, it is not. Because when you sit in that space, when you let go of that outside world for those 20 minutes, half an hour or so, you are getting in touch with Susan, if you like. You are sitting with her. You've shut off all that rubbish that surrounds her. You're shutting off that mind that is full of that fluff, and you are sitting in a space where just Susan exists. When you do that, okay, you will start to learn an awful lot about who she is. Susan nudges you now and again. She gives you that gut feeling. And that's why I kind of explained just a minute ago. If it doesn't sit right with you, when I say you, I mean the real Susan. So if it's not sitting right with the real Susan, let it go. Do not absorb it. Let it go. You will, over time, as you learn about Susan, I apologise if your name's not Susan. Don't get me wrong. You just have to live with it for a minute, so I can explain. But when you spend time with the real Susan, okay, things change. Over time, your perception of things changes. Your understanding of things changes. Things that didn't bother you before now bother you quite a bit. Things that did bother you now don't matter, because you start to put things in a true perspective. Not in that perspective you've been bombarded with since the day you drew breath, but a true perspective, a perspective of truth. And I always say, for you to understand, because I go on an awful lot about truth, for you to understand that truth, you need to sit with it. That truth will change you. Your understanding of things will change. And the more you absorb that truth, then the better person you become. Is it easy? No. Is bringing that truth out there into this big wide world a piece of cake? No. When people talk about, being a good medium, yes, it's nice to be able to go out there and to do that in a truthful, positive way. But there is a price. And if anyone says that it's not the case, then I question that. I truly do. Because a lot of your perception of things will be different to those who have no perception of truth whatsoever. They are in a world that purely exists to get out of it what you can, materially. And if you are unsuccessful at getting out of this world what you can, materially, then you're a failure. And that is a very sad way of looking at things. Anyway, before I go off on a tangent, which I'm very good at doing, and you've probably spotted that in other videos. So, what do we do with Susan? How do we work with her? How do we improve that mediumship for her? Well, the first thing is to help her understand who Susan is, teach her or guide her into listening and working with Susan. And obviously, like I mentioned before, we need to defluff. Now, defluffing can be quite a natural thing. It doesn't take an awful lot of effort. I can see some of my students sometimes, they will be going along the road of defluffing, and then they'll go off, listen to somebody give a talk, they'll go off onto a course, they'll go and sit in a circle somewhere and start building up another load of fluff. I'm not saying that everything they're taught, please don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that everything is wrong, but what I'm saying is there are elements that sometimes are so obviously made up. I'm not going to highlight too many of those things that I've been told over the last few years of teaching, because I don't want to discriminate. I don't want that to happen. But like I said, to get a good idea of truth, Susan needs to listen to Susan, because that way it's as closest to the truth you will get in that space, sat with self. That is where the truth sits. And your true teachers are in that space. Spirit will work with you. They will learn about you as much as you learn about them. And the trouble is, when we sit in that space, this is what a lot of people term as sitting in the power. Okay, just in case I'm confusing you. But when you're sat in that space, there's so much to learn, especially about self. And it's not taught in a way like a classroom necessarily. You're not going to get homework. You are not always going to hear it. You're not always going to feel it, because it is something that Susan is working on spiritually, if you like, with your soul. It's what she's working with. So it's not something that you're always going to know is happening. But one of the hints is when you come out of sitting in that space is how wonderful you feel. Nothing could have been said. You've not seen anything, not necessarily sensed an awful lot. But you feel wonderful. So think about that one. Something has happened. So, Susan will spend time with Susan. And Susan will learn to allow the true personality, if you like, the true soul of who Susan is. She will, over time, naturally allow that to step forward into her everyday life. It will become part of her, as it should have been from day one. But unfortunately, we get trampled on with an bombardment of fluff. So Susan kind of disappears, and the plastic Susan appears with blinkers on, and off she goes, left off in the big wide world, and does her best. So, as Susan is allowed to emanate from who you are, Susan changes, like I said. She becomes, it's not a massive change. Okay, don't grow wings or anything like that. But she will start to see things differently. So, how does this help with mediumship? When the natural Susan emanates, when she is allowed to step forward, when she becomes part of who you are, that energy, that truth that emanates from her is what Spirit sees, is what Spirit works with, is what Spirit impress upon. Many of the students I work with now say to me, the only time that they used to sense that spiritual energy, that love, that warmth of spirit, was whilst they were sat in the power. I don't like that. Many of you know I don't like that expression, but that's what it's called. That's fine. So the only time that they had a sense, or the only time they could really attune to that energy, was whilst they were sat in the power. But as time goes on, they find themselves in that state, that sensing of that love and that warmth. Almost instantly, they feel they want to. It's instant. People have said to me, many of the students have said, well, sat having a coffee, maybe in a town centre somewhere. They kind of go off and then they are there. They just all of a sudden sense the energy around them. It's because it's becoming a natural part of who they are. Now, I'm not saying that you'll go for a coffee and all the spirit world is sitting around the table with you and having a natural... I'm not talking about that. That's another video, because there is an element of control, there's an element of respect, and there's an element of spirit know when you're working. But what an awful lot of the students are saying, and I'm saying a good 80% at the moment, because I've been working for a while with some of them, are all saying the same thing. They no longer have to sit and go off before they have the sense of the energy that's around them. It's now becoming natural for them. And that is what we're looking for. That's what we've been working towards. So when they go and do a reading, when they do a demonstration, there is a naturalness to it. They will, spirit know when you're working, they know when to draw close, and they will, it never happens where they don't turn up. The only thing that ever blocks is you. You are the blocker, if you like. Spirit will be there when they need to be there. If you're demonstrating, loved ones will see that light, that energy that I was talking about, emanating from you. They will blend with that. They will merge with that. They will impress upon that, because you are working. You are doing what Spirit wants you to do. You are an instrument of Spirit. And Spirit truly understand is something that people struggle with. They truly understand our lives. They know why we do what we do. They know why we are working. These energies have not just appeared from nowhere. They have lived a life. And like the expression I use, they've wore the t-shirt. I am a strong believer in when that message needs to be given, there is always meaning, there's always purpose behind that message. And Spirit will be there for that purpose. It's not a party trick. We don't turn it on enough when we feel like it. And if you do that, I would rethink about what your purpose is. So when we do readings, many a time those readings are booked in advance. Spirit are well aware. There's no coincidence. That reading that you're going to do was in the pipeline well before you even knew about it. Spirit will be there. They will work with you. So you want to be a medium, you want to be a good medium, you want to give good evidence, then you have to spend that time sitting with Spirit, sitting with self. So with Susan, initially we work on the understanding of self, and it's not complicated, it's a very natural thing. And we work on the defluffing, because there'll be bits and pieces that come up that the students always say, well, I was told it. I'll say, well, hang on a minute. How did you feel about that? Do you accept that? And 99% of the time they turn around and say, well, no, I didn't feel comfortable with it, but I did it that way. It never worked for me, but I kept trying and It is sad that people feel especially those learning about mediumship, that they have to do that. They have to sit and do as they're told. So, like I said earlier, there are many good teachers out there. Many, many good teachers. But they're all of a sudden, out of the blue, we're getting this influx of, where did that come from? There's some really odd methods being taught. And an awful lot of the students that come to me have spent months and months and months and hundreds of pounds as well, purely working on psychic level. Everything they've ever taught, even some of these are they class them as circles, some of these courses, have done nothing but just psychic work. Now, one of my students got very frustrated with that and actually questioned the course taker. Didn't go down at all well. But I would say probably out of 6 sessions, they touched on the connection of mediumship once. The connection, soul to soul connection, once. All the rest was pure psychic stuff that is very saddening. It's very upsetting to some degree, because all I want to do for you as a student is obviously build on forming that relationship with Spirit, that communication, opening that line of communication up. And like I've said a million times, this is such a natural process. You have the energy within you, that self, that Susan, that will connect with Spirit, because it's their true selves, their spirits, their souls that are trying to connect to you. So like will attract like. If we get that from you, that energy from within you out there, then they see that, they sense it, and they work with it, they will impress upon it. So I hope that will help you make a decision about your journey of learning, of how to go about it. Once the Susan gets to a certain level, certain understanding of self, a certain, already those that have put that time dedication into learning about themselves, sitting with the Susans, if you like, they have moved on leaps and bounds amazingly. Even those that sat there, right at the beginning with their heads down, so I can't do this, I want to do it, but I just can't, are now doing readings, and it's amazing to see. The other obstacle is always confidence and trust. The words that come up quite regularly are trust, allowing, faith. We have to build all those. But once Susan gets to know Susan and trusts her and listens to her, it helps open up that line of communication with the conscious energies that are around you. So Spirit can come in, they can impress upon you, they can pass on that message to your sitter with clarity, with proof of evidence. The more Susan's out there, the easier it is for Spirit to impress upon her. So we need to allow that Susan to step forward outside of the plastic Susan. We need to cut the plastic Susan off so that the true Susan can communicate with the energies that are the same as her. Energies of love, of warmth, soul. And I always say it's soul talking to soul. And I think I mentioned it in another video, maybe even be the one before this. You sometimes meet your friend in the street and say, "How are you?" And they go, "I'm fine." And you'll look at them and you'll know they're not. Their facial expression is probably identical to what it's always been. That smile as big as it's always been. But something tells you that not is all well. It's Susan that's telling you that. Because Susan is talking to the true self of the other person. That's why you know, because you're listening to Susan. So I think I might have gone from Sarah to Susan, Susan to Sarah. I probably used a couple of names there, but hopefully you get the gist of what I'm trying to say. And when you walk in that house, in that room, and you don't feel right, you don't like it, it's bad atmosphere. It hasn't got bad atmosphere written on the wall, has it? It hasn't got something's happened in this house written on the wall. No. Susan's telling you because she's feeling the energy. So once we start to trust that Susan, we work with that Susan, we allow that Susan to step forward, and we work with her. Then when we do our sittings, we start to listen to the energy of self, our own soul, because it's that is making that communication happen. And the more we work with it, the clearer it becomes. So that's why we dedicate time to sitting. Any questions, feel free to ask. Just ask in the comments or send me a message, whatever. Please like, please subscribe. Just helps me carry on with what I'm doing. And I will put a link on of my Patreon where I do my teaching in the description. So if you've got any interest at all in that, if you've got any questions about that at all, please feel free to ask. But go off and get to know you, Susan. Take care. I'll speak again soon. Bye for now.